Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly wild, high-stakes renter crisis that's fully documented in our source materials. We're going to examine an absolute masterclass in negotiation, hidden leverage, and knowing exactly what your rights are. Okay, let's just dive right into this. We're looking at a situation where a massively stressful housing nightmare transforms into a complete reversal of power, and it's all done through meticulous documentation and one perfectly crafted email.
So I want you to imagine being in this exact position at 131 Amblefield Avenue Northwest. You wake up, and your roommates have literally vanished without a trace, leaving nothing but their keys behind. The lease is ending right now, and the property management company is suddenly demanding $2,350 in full. And if you don't pay up immediately, they're threatening to drag you to the tenancy board for a fast-tracked eviction. It's a moment of absolute, pure panic. What's your next move?
Well, you might think the only option is to just pack up your stuff and flee, right? But here is the shocking twist that changes the entire game. $15,000. As we analyze the source texts, it's revealed that due to a series of severe contract breaches, this is the massive amount the landlord essentially owes the tenants in retroactive compensation. The power dynamic is about to completely flip.
Section 1. The sudden rent crisis, backed into a corner.
Just look at the sheer speed of this crisis. On May 30th, former roommates Cameron and Alicia suddenly vacate without any notice. On June 1st, the lease officially wraps up. The remaining tenants, Dakota and Mark, ask for a temporary rent reduction to $1,600 just to survive the month and figure things out. But by June 2nd, Preferred Property Management, or PPM, rejects that completely. They demand the full $2,350 immediately and threaten to file with the Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution Service for a fast-tracked eviction. The clock is ticking, and it's ticking loudly.
Section 2. The Ammunition Vault. Finding the Hidden Leverage.
So Dakota and Mark dig into the history of their tenancy, and they uncover three massive violations just sitting there. First, a severe safety hazard. For 2 full years, their upper back door opens directly into a sheer 7-foot drop because a promised finished deck was never built. That's a major building code violation. Second, systemic utility exploitation. 7 months into the lease, a tenant moved downstairs with quote-unquote utilities included. Then a new tenant moved in just this May under that exact same deal. Dakota and Mark were basically forced to subsidize the landlord's lower suite rental income, paying those bills entirely out of pocket. And third, just a few days prior to this crisis, the landlord suddenly stepped in and transferred those utility accounts into their own name.
And to make matters so much worse for the property management, the tenants actually have this in writing. When they previously complained about that highly hazardous 7-foot drop out their back door, they were officially told to, quote, stop asking about the deck. I mean, you can't make this up. This is blatant, documented negligence written directly into their lease communications. The landlord willfully ignored a massive structural safety violation.
Section 3. Anatomy of an Ultimatum. Crafting the perfect email.
So how did Dakota and Mark actually weaponize all this information? They draft an absolutely ironclad email ultimatum. In this draft, they hit the utility issue right away with this exact sentence. We note that just a few days ago, the landlord abruptly stepped in and transferred the utility accounts into their own name. Now, why point this out so early in the message? Because it acts as an implicit admission of guilt. By abruptly changing the utility billings right at the end of the tenancy, the landlord completely exposes their own panic. They essentially realized that forcing the upstairs suite to pay for a separate, unmetered basement unit was entirely non-compliant with the law, and they scrambled to cover their tracks. Putting this right at the top of the email stops the landlord from pretending they did nothing wrong. Then, the email escalates beautifully. The tenants explicitly state they are fully prepared to file an application with the tenancy board to recover their stolen utility costs and loss of promised amenities. But they don't stop there. They also mention they're prepared to request a formal inspection from city bylaw regarding that 7-foot drop hazard. They take the landlord's eviction threat, flip it entirely, and go on the offense. And they do this by utilizing a retroactive rent abatement. Now, this is a terrifying financial consequence for any property manager. It means a legal order could literally force the landlord to refund thousands of dollars in past rent because they failed to provide the promised deck and illegally overcharged for those utilities. Remember that $15,000 figure we talked about? This is how it becomes a very real legal threat hanging right over the property owner's head.
Section 4. The two ultimate options. Setting the trap door.
A good ultimatum doesn't just threaten, right? It offers a highly calculated way out to settle the matter. Option 1 is the highly reduced stay. Dakota and Mark agree to stay long-term, but at a permanently reduced rent of $1,200 a month, which includes a fair, flat rate pitched toward those utilities. Option 2 is the free rent settlement. The landlord waives their rent entirely for June and July while the tenants plan an orderly transition out.
Now, what is absolutely brilliant about option 2 is the psychology behind it. The email frames 2 months of free rent not as a favor and not as some desperate plea because they're broke, but as a direct, out-of-court financial settlement. It turns it into a business transaction. It essentially says, hey, we won't drag you to the board for the stolen utilities and 2 years of safety hazards if you give us 2 months of breathing room to safely pack up and leave without involving the tenancy board. It is a completely unignorable proposition.
Section 5. Why this strategy wins. The ultimate power reversal.
So why does this specific email format win? It comes down to 3 precise steps. Step 1, pointing out that recent utility transfer completely locks in the landlord's admitted fault. Step 2, framing the free rent as a settlement turns a tenant's vulnerable moment into a calculated corporate negotiation. And step 3, it completely halts that fast-track eviction pressure.
This brilliantly illustrates the core takeaway from all these source texts. Meticulous documentation is your absolute ultimate shield. A landlord simply cannot rush an eviction through the system when they are simultaneously facing city code inspectors and a massive, perfectly legitimate $15,000 dispute over illegal utility setups. By knowing their rights and their leverage, Dakota and Mark bought themselves the exact last-minute time they needed. It really completely shifts how you look at a rental agreement, doesn't it? It's not just a set of rules for you to follow, it's a binding contract for them as well. So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. Next time your property manager tries to force your hand, what hidden leverage might be sitting right there in your own lease agreements and email history? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, know your rights, and I will catch you on the next one.